exhibitions are such a great learning environment for your whole squad. So if you have got a bit of a quieter time, let one of the less experienced members of your team have a wander around, either to see what more they can learn about the industry. So is there like a really good seminar that they could go to, or a demonstration they could go watch, or actually just go have a look at other people's stands.
Today's guests bring a rare combination of practical exhibition know-how as well as behavioural strategy. So Steve and Nichola Reeder are the minds behind ProExTra, and they've helped countless brands turn exhibition chaos into a measurable impact. So all of which you can read in their brilliant book, The Exhibitionist. Now, I was dying to bring you guys on for a chat, not only because from the Exhibitors Day did I get a lot of ideas, practical direction, and then obviously we needed a lot more from you guys, so we then got the power hour, of which we had really nuanced changes in the plan to the stand that we've really benefited from. So I thought today we could do a general power hour with you guys, and then if anybody wants something more tailored, highly recommend you reach out to these guys to get that done before your next exhibition. So in this episode, I wanted to go behind the scenes of what actually works at the exhibitions, from the stand design, staff training, first impressions, and then finally follow-ups with obviously the experts here. But firstly, thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Thank you so much for inviting us. We are very excited to be here.
Oh, complete pleasure. So the first question that I wanted to get into was, what do high-performing exhibitors do differently before the show even starts?
There is one really simple answer to that, and that is they set SMART objectives right at the very beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're not meaning the week before. We tend to say to people, if you're going to do an exhibition properly, you need a minimum of 12 months leading, and that 12 months gives you the planning time.
12 months. Wow, I don't even think I know what I'm doing in 12 months' time. So for SMART objectives, I know that it's something that we hear about all the time, but can you just explain what that would be, and then maybe an example of what that would be for an exhibition?
Yeah, sure. So for so many exhibitors, clients that we have worked with, when we've said to them, why are you wanting to invest in this exhibition? We tend to get the standard answer of, to meet new people. And that's brilliant. That's what face-to-face exhibitions are about. But that's a big old macro objective. And actually to be able to really then get into the minutiae of how do you get the best out of your investment, you need to be really, really clear about how many people, how many conversations do you need to have, what are you trying to sell them or talk to them about? So what's the end result in terms of revenue? So just putting some really, really specific numbers on, which helps with every other decision you're going to make in the planning process. So, for example, we want to meet lots of new customers. Could be, we'd like to speak to 200 people who we're not already aware of, and within 12 months have converted 50 of those to buying product X at a cost of £1,000 each.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people miss that, don't they? Is that like meeting new people is great, and that's obviously okay. But it's, something that you guys mentioned, and I'd love you to go into it, is there's different people that you'll meet at the stand, isn't it? So not each conversation is actually equal, if that makes sense. So do you want to go into that a bit?
Yeah, one of your favourite topics. How do you get rid of those people who actually don't really add any value to your business?
Yeah. You've got your classic people coming on board that are trying to sell you services. So it's all about doing your qualifying questions, identifying who is, for want of a better word, a time waster, and getting them off your stand as fast as possible. And I'm not saying have bouncers and throw them into the aisle, but just politely going, you know what, we haven't got anything that'll benefit your company, so I hope you have a lovely day in the exhibition. I've got other customers or potential customers to talk to.
Yeah, just kind of building on that, exhibitions these days have a really, really broad footprint, so that the range of services that you might find at the same exhibition is huge, from people who are accountants and general business services to very specific machinery or products to an accessory. And you might have gone as a visitor looking for something specific, and therefore you couldn't possibly buy from 100% of the businesses there because you just don't need it.
Yeah.
So research would suggest about 18 to 20% of the people who come through the door of an exhibition could buy from you. Now, people tend to get a little bit disappointed with that figure and think, why am I putting all this money into it if only 20% of the people can actually buy one of my products? Mm-hmm. But if you've got 10,000 people going to an exhibition, 20% of 10,000 is still a lot.
Yeah.
You just need to find that 20%. And that's about, if you're saying we want to speak to 200 people, new customers, who are they? What are their job titles? What background do they come from? What businesses do they come from? So being really clear, that's who you're looking for. So if somebody from a business comes to your stand who clearly isn't ever going to buy your product, you can identify them really, really quickly and just say, do you know what? Exactly as Steve said, I don't think we've really got anything that we can do business on. We don't really have any mutual interests, but I know there are some brilliant exhibitors out there who can. So go find them, and I hope you have a great day. And there's no issue with saying that. If you're not going to do any business together, don't waste each other's time.
Yeah, but always remember your best customers are the customers that you've already got.
Yes, exactly.
And what we try and get clients to do is, if we can predict if we've been to an exhibition of that nature for that client, and we know there's times that there's going to be a lull in the foot flow, that's when you want to be inviting your current customers onto your stand. One, you've got time to talk to them, and if there are any issues, you're talking to them without anybody else listening that could be a potential client. But it also gives a buzz when there's a lull, and then people are attracted to your stand because, like, well, footfall's not great, but that stand seems to be really, really busy. What have they got to offer?
Okay. I mean, there's two things that you got onto there that I want to ask and hone in on a bit more. I think the first one is, for example, if I said I wanted 200 conversations, that's definitely not the same as 200 qualified conversations, is it? Which I think is what you guys are getting at there, is that maybe even 20% of those conversations then would be worth your time. So there was something that you mentioned again in our Power Hour that was tracking these kind of either the questions that guide somebody away or the questions that you ask to get somebody more enticed. And you had mentioned kind of doing kind of after action reviews or like reviews with the team saying, I think that this is really working or this is really working. So in terms of that, how would you kind of frame tracking something beyond leads, more metrics that are working in real time on the stand?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because actually with the best planning in the world, and we would always say, plan for every scenario, you can think about it. You can write a really great script for your filtering questions. You can brief your team on it really well so they're feeling really confident, really excited, raring to go. And then a few hours in, you're kind of like, do you know what? This is just not happening. So what are we asking the wrong questions? So the first thing would be, it's okay to change things. If you get on site and find that things just aren't going as you thought, change it. That's okay. But I think there aren't going to be those immediate sales decisions unless you're at a consumer show. So if you're physically selling something, so we, for example, similar sort of scenario, we've got a mobile bar. We can tell within the first couple of hours by how many coffees we've sold, by how many beers we've sold, whether it's going to be a good day or a bad day. You just kind of get that idea. But if you're not selling things, it's much harder to try and understand, well, are we having a good day? Is this working out for us? So definitely in your planning, build in a few metrics like a dashboard that you can look at very quickly to say, okay, how many conversations have we had? So we've had 10. Actually, all 10 of those went nowhere. So are we asking the wrong questions? Are these the wrong people? Are we looking for the wrong? So just be able to have some very quick way of being able to get some feedback from the team and some numbers that you can measure against to be able to kind of think, is this working? And also, how are people engaging with, if you've got like a tablet on your stand where you interacting with some sort of game, or you're giving away some prizes, or you've had a little presentation on your stand that you've given to people, but nobody's turned up for it. So what are the things that tell you immediately kind of if you've got the right people there.
Kind of metrics for your metrics in a way, right? To make sure that you've got your finger on the pulse. And the second thing that you guys mentioned there was the slower stand times, right? So how could exhibitors approach those slower stand times? Like, some people could see them as wasted minutes, but I'm sure that there's some opportunity in that you've kind of touched on already.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, invite guests. If you invite the press, get the press, because it's great if the press, if you want to lead with a press campaign afterwards, and yes, the press turn up, they're taking photographs, they're taking videos of a really busy stand, but you haven't got the time to interact with that journalist. Mm-hmm. So if you invite them on when you think there's going to be a lull, you've got time to prepare and time to engage with that crew and get your points across in a way that's not rushed and not interrupted by people on your stand.
I think that's a good point because, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a sad point at the same time. I'd love my lull to be where I can, rest my feet for a bit and just go, it's quiet, isn't it?
No.
But instead, I suppose, since we've spent all this money, we should probably make the most out of it, right? So take some guests to your stand or some press. That's a really good takeaway.
And the other thing I would say is exhibitions are such a great learning environment for your whole squad. So if you have got a bit of a quieter time, let one of the less experienced members of your team have a wander around, either to see what more they can learn about the industry. So is there like a really good seminar that they could go to or a demonstration they could go watch, or actually just go have a look at other people's stands. And if there are quiet times, but somebody else's stand is really, really busy, what is it that they're doing? Like, what's attracting all this attention? What's exciting? See what you like about what other people are doing. See if there's people within the business that you want to do business with yourself, other suppliers, other exhibitors that you could go and talk to and say, look, I know it's a bit quiet, but can we have a chat about working together? That kind of golden moments are brilliant for just going and learning as much as you can about the exhibition.
Yeah, I suppose there's a lot of like missed opportunities, isn't there, in terms of like maybe we're not squeezing it as much as possible. And do you guys see any other kind of missed opportunities that most exhibitors, they rock up with the stand, they've got some leaflets and they're ready, but what are the kind of top tips that you guys would give to make sure that we're making the most out of it?
Well, the first thing is get there early before the show opens. We call it the golden hour. Okay. And walk the show with nobody in it and just see. So, it's sort of like Nick said, in your quiet times, send team members out and see what's happening. But that golden hour, while people are setting up, they're not interested in you walking past. They're not interested in what you're looking at. Just go and check out what your competitors are doing, or a stand that's got something, a product or a service that's completely out of what you guys want to do, but you think, wow, that's making an impact. That's you can understand what they're selling straight away, and just use any time, not just the show time, but any time you've got access to that hall or halls, make the most of it.
And that's something that's really interesting. So we were at a food show earlier on this year, and Kit Kat were there, and they hadn't exhibited at this show for a while. And they'd spent a fortune on their stand. It looked incredible. It was like the outside walls were just huge bars of Kit Kat. I literally just wanted to plant my face on it and eat. They weren't plastic. But everybody was talking about how amazing this stand was, and it was brilliant. It was the kind of stand of the show. And you could see it from all over the hall. But when the aisles are packed, it's actually the smaller stands that don't have as much money that you can learn a load from, but you don't see the little nuances, the little things that they're doing, the clever bits and pieces, because the halls are packed with people. So if you go and walk around when it's a little emptier, you can see some of how people have stretched the budget, being a bit clever with their design and their artwork. Have a look at some of the messaging they're putting on their stand design, the graphics. How easy is it for you to understand what they do? Pick up some of the language they're using. So that's a kind of a really good tip. But the big one, how do people make the most of exhibitions? Just follow up your leads. Like 13% of exhibitors actually follow up any leads that they get. 13. It's a ridiculously small number. So we hear from clients, from exhibitors all the time who say, oh, I didn't get anything back from that. And it's like, well, how many people have you followed up with, had a conversation with? Well, we didn't really think it was worth it after the show. Well, there you go. So, but know what your follow-up campaign is going to be. Know what the first email is that they should get whilst they're still at the show. Then in the next few days afterwards, depending on how you've categorised that lead, are they hot, lukewarm, chilly, gold, silver, bronze, however you categorise it, what contact are they getting from you? How do you keep them engaged? So 7 points of contact it usually takes before somebody will buy from you. So what are the 7 things that you're going to do over the next 6 months to keep in touch? So I think that's the big one, is just talk to all of those people that you met.
Oh, it's the huge one. And honestly, I think Kitty Ann, who's on, nobody can see her, but she's here. It's the one thing she's going, are you going to keep talking about that follow-up thing? I'm like, yeah, because why are people spending tens of thousands and then just letting people then walk away? The logic, well, there isn't any to it at all. But before we rant about follow-ups, which we will get to, you mentioned like the small stands can have nuances that actually might draw somebody in. So what have you guys found has actually drawn people into a stand, from like the design or the behavioural insight?
Gosh, the one thing that I think really doesn't work, and we're still seeing it, is either the kind of character costume. So like somebody dressed up as Scooby-Doo when there is no obvious link to Scooby-Doo whatsoever. That like novelty, or we were at another show where the girls were dressed up in like tiny little dresses, mega high heels, very kind of 70s strip club look. And it's like, just so like that novelty stuff doesn't really work anymore, does it? It may have done. And, a food and drink exhibition, and somebody wasn't a food exhibitor. They were like a software company and they put a bowl of sweets out. And it's like, yeah, but there's a fresh croissant stand there. So nobody wants your like melted Cadbury's hero because there's a croissant. So just kind of those are the things that maybe don't work. But sorry.
And especially if you've got a 3x2 stand and you've got some products, you've got multimedia, TV or whatever on the wall. What you don't want to do is create any barriers for people coming onto your stand. Once they come onto onto your stand, whether they are a prospective client or somebody that you want off your stand, they're yours. And they psychologically, they know that once they go over that stand threshold, they're fair game. But if you've got 2 or 3 people stood there with their arms crossed like bouncers, it looks so uninviting, and you're creating that barrier. Get your people in on the stand and then come forward to engage with them.
Yeah. And I think it's things like just make it really clear and really obvious to people what you do. So, for example, we had a tool company who were selling all sorts of nuts and bolts and Allen keys and spanners and all that kind of thing. But they were a wholesaler who wanted to sell it onto shops with a display unit. So actually their stand was just the display units with stuff on. That's all, as it would look in your shop. Yeah. So as soon as you walked onto the stand, straight away they're going, do you think this is work in your DIY store, your hardware store? What do you think of this? This is what we could create. Straight away, you can picture your shop and think, oh yeah, actually, that would really work for us. So it's kind of been really, really clear. Show people what you do. Try and incorporate, so some of the smaller stands where they don't have a huge amount of budget for decoration. One was a tea company, and they did little canisters of tea. So all around their back wall, they just had some grey wallpaper and then stuck on the little canisters of tea. So that was, again, really clear, really obvious what they did. So just because you don't have much money, people tend to then just spend it on lots of cheap rubbish that clutters up the stand. So keep it really, really sleek, really clean and clear. Exactly as Steve said, no barriers, clear graphics on the wall that articulates exactly what you do. Don't have piles of brochures everywhere. Have a QR code to download the brochure. People don't want to carry stuff with them.
And what people don't want to do is come on your stand and read War and Peace on your graphics to find out what you do. What we say to clients is no more than 6 words and some visuals. The 6 words that articulates what you do or what your service is, and then nobody wants to read War and Peace when you go into a stand. So if you've got a stand full of text, you're gonna stop people coming on because they think if they can't articulate what they want me to understand in 6 words, then I'm going to be wasting my time because I have absolutely no clue what they do. So what we say to clients is no more than 6 words, but really striking visuals, whether that's your logo, whether it's something showing what your service is, because psychologically, when they think about the exhibition, they see the graphics in their mind's eye, and then they remember what the 6 words were. And it's been proven statistically from exhibition research in the past.
I think kind of on that graphics is just a way of capturing people's attentions. It's not the way for you to tell a visitor absolutely everything about your business. It's just a way for them to very quickly go, is this a service or a product I need in my business? Is this worth me having a conversation with the stand staff? You don't have to tell them everything. It's just enough to capture their imagination. And actually, AI is really good. One of the kind of software programs, just put into that, this is what I want to say. How would I put that in an exhibition graphic in 6 to 10 words? And it spits out some stuff that won't be exactly right, but it will probably give you a fairly good idea of kind of where to go. And gamification, massive trend for this year. So having some kind of game or activity on your stand, brilliant if it ties in somehow to what your proposition is, what your business service is. If it's just a random, grab a token to win some money, what is the point? Or a random racing car. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So tie it into something about your product, and that the noise and the activity attracts people. But make sure it's really easy to understand. We were on site last week at an event in London. Really great event, really big supplier to that industry. And they got this kind of, you went into this little booth, there was a bit of a game, it picked out a prize for you and you won it, but it was just really hard to understand. It was kind of tucked away at the back. People were a bit nervous about what's going to happen to me when I go in that booth. So nobody really used it, and it will have cost them an absolute fortune. And it's like, you just kind of, and there was nobody there showing people what to do with it. It was a bit of I think they thought, this will be like a really resource-free bit of fun in our stand. Nobody needs to look after that, but I never really saw anyone in it.
But the gamification doesn't need to be techie. It doesn't need to cost you a lot of money. We were at, again, another food show end of last year, and won't mention the name, but it was a really big household national crisp company. And what they had was a spinner wheel. You pick a number and it lands on a number. And they had like pigeonholes with cloth covering the pigeonholes. And they literally had somebody in the back of these pigeonholes with samples depending on what number came up. So the dial went round, and it went round on their side as well. So they knew which pigeonhole it was. But
it was like the hand came out.
Literally, their hand came out with a bag of crisps. Or
you got a cheese and onion. You got a key ring. It's quite a quirky crisp band, so it kind of fit in with them. So yeah, just have a bit of fun, have a bit of creativity. If you've not got much budget, that's when you need to get a bit creative.
So in that case then, so obviously let's say that we're looking at a stand, we're using our 6 words that aren't just like innovative solutions, that, something that's actual specific, specific to what you guys do. A graphic that maybe resonates with that, but maybe leaves something to the imagination so that you're actually talking. We then don't want to have those barriers or those bouncers on the stand, something a bit more inviting, and then a game that would essentially bring somebody on but needs to be manned, right? So in that case, when we're thinking about that and we're looking at that stand, are we thinking of almost like a mini customer journey? Because I'm kind of thinking the first thing they're going to do is probably look at that, then they'll go to that, and then how do we approach? Is that kind of how you guys would look at a stand?
Absolutely. And from the very first moment you have a conversation with a visitor, it's all about filtering, all about moving them along that customer journey, the path to purchase, to understand not just can you do business with them, but what level of potential business can you do with them? So I have lost track of the number of exhibitions we've been to where we've approached the stand and somebody with the best of intentions have said to us, You having a good day today? And we both go, yep, and carry on walking. Because what else are we going to say at that point? And we could have been interested in it, but it's just such a rubbish opening question, but it's the most overused opening question. So that first kind of question that you ask them is trying to establish what they're there at the exhibition for. So you were just writing some this morning for another client. It could be around that. So what is it? Tell me about what it is that you're really excited about seeing on the show floor today. Tell me about it. What is missing in your business that has inspired you to come to this show, to take a day off work and to come here? So you're into that kind of initially just showing that you care about them, about their business, and they'll tell you a whole load in that first answer that helps you to think, right, where do we go from here? And it might be that I'm looking for tea bags because our tea is really rubbish in our canteen, and you think, well, I sell marketing services, so I can do nothing for you. So you just politely point out the tea bag supplier. But then the next question you ask, if they say, well, actually, I'm looking for a bit of marketing support. Brilliant. So you might want to go down the line of, what do you currently have? Who are you currently using? What are you not happy with? What have you seen other people do that you really like? What have you read about that you think's interesting, but you're a bit scared to do? So those kind of mining conversations to try and understand what their need is in their business. Then you can maybe start to drop in a little bit of what you do without being too salesy. So that kind of, actually, we do some brilliant content for people. So we can create videos, we can do some of your social media campaigns for you. Is that something that you're looking for? You see, all the way you're moving through, and they might respond to you, yeah, I want to do that, but it's probably not until next year, or yeah, I'm really interested in that, but I've got to convince my boss to spend money on it. And all the time you're picking up these little clues as to, are they a gold, silver or bronze? Because if they say, yeah, we want that help, we want it next month, and I've got 100 grand to spend on it, oh my God, snap their hand off, take them out for dinner that night. That's amazing. If they say, yeah, I'd really like to, but, it's taken me 5 years to get us a website and we're always too busy to do anything. And actually, can we take all of that off your hands? That's a good selling sign. So all the way through, I think you're having that filtering conversation about how do you get them close to the path to purchase. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it is, as you say. I mean, what you've got to do, you've got to gear up from the minute that those doors open. Is, even if it's just in your mind's eye, how do I move a potential client from, hi, what you're here for, to, right, we can help you with this, but not being, for goodness sake, don't mention prices, don't mention, oh, we can send, one of the characters in our book is the hard sell Hank, and the character that we've got there is, is trying to get somebody to sign on the dotted line. That's not what B2B exhibitions are about. B2B exhibitions are about making the contacts and building on that relationship.
And trying also in that time to sort of get a handle of the size of their business. Because if, you can ask questions like, so how many people do you employ? Who are your big customers? So just to give you clues about, well, actually, is this going to be one of our really senior members of our team that looks after this person? Is it a more junior member? Who would be the right person? What do we think the potential value of their business might be, and how quickly might they be ready to convert? So you just all the time trying to pick up those little clues.
Yeah, so in that case, we're kind of framing the questions in a way that we're going deeper, and then that allows us to then use that scale that you guys mentioned so that we could follow up with them is the main thing there, right? So that we can actually...
But whoever's asking those questions, you need to know when to stop. So, you've got somebody there that's going, yes, we can't do anything until we've got the board on board and blah, blah, blah. Right, okay, they're a bronze or a silver. There's no need to keep going down that rabbit hole with them. But obviously, if you get past that point and you realise, yeah, these guys are wanting to move fairly quickly, that's when you dig deeper, you get as much information as possible, put it on your CRM system or however you're capturing that data, and make sure the following day you follow that up.
Yeah, because I guess some people might want, I don't know if it's our hard sell Hanks or who, but it could be that they're trying to use the questions and they're not stopping because they're trying to make them a gold, they're just trying to force that situation.
Force it. It may well be that person that's been taking that information has misunderstood, and there could be not a bronze, but a silver or a gold. But with your next contact with them outside the exhibition arena, you can soon pick that up and move them into the silver gold position.
Because also, if you think about a show like Automechanika that's every other year, you kind of don't want everybody wanting your services 2 weeks after the show, because you couldn't service it, or most businesses couldn't service it. So you kind of got to go into it knowing how many people you could take on board as new customers straight away. But those people who come away as a bronze, so we really like what you're doing, really think we could use your services, but not right now. Next year, the year you don't have a show, they become your pipeline. So that's kind of next year's, and it might be the next iteration of Automechanika when they come in as a silver, then you move them up to a gold. So you've kind of got 3 levels of people coming to a show: your existing customers, people you've had contact with but not quite converted yet, and then brand new people you've never met. And you kind of want a different response and a different time scale for all of those so that you can manage them as a business.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that Nick's made there. The amount of people that we've worked with in the past that want all gold, and they want to sit down on the following day and get that business done. How are you gonna accentuate your business plan? How are you going to get the money to service that? Where are you getting the staff from? Yeah,
that's as much in the planning, isn't it? About
we do know clients in the past that did go down that route, and they were literally swamped. And that's where what you don't want to do then is promise the earth to everybody, and you're not delivering because you're trying to overservice too many people at the same time. So then, your name gets out there as somebody, they promised me this and they didn't deliver it.
So, when clients say to us, we want to meet every single visitor coming through the door, and it's so that's 10,000 people. Can you imagine how big your stand would be, how many staff you would need, how much money you would need, and then having to follow up with 10,000 people? Completely unrealistic. So just work out from what you as a business, if you're investing 50 grand, for example, in an exhibition, it wouldn't be unrealistic to think we could get £200,000 worth of business back off of that over the next 2 years. But then that at least give you some numbers to plan against. So that's why those SMART objectives really help.